and welcome to this last meeting council of the civic year. Before we commence the business of the evening, may I just say that we've all been deeply saddened by the death of His late Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. And of course, I, with the leader, have on behalf of Exeter City Council expressed our sincere condolences to Her Majesty the Queen and to the royal family on his passing. The flags have flown at half-mast at the Guildhall and at the Cathedral during the period of official mourning until the funeral, which was so moving and poignant. I had been aware of the outpouring of national grief and the many ways the citizens of Exeter have paid their respects, including the special memorial service held in the Cathedral. And so it is appropriate that before we start the proceedings of this council meeting, that we take a minute's silence to reflect on his life. Thank you all.
The minute has finished, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. And so, before we formally commence this evening's business, can I please remind all members of the following? Please remain focused on the topic being discussed. Please don't repeat points which have already been made. Please avoid interrupting other councillors and respect the position of the chair, the Lord Mayor. Please indicate, if possible, by show of hand or using the Zoom blue-yellow function if you wish to speak on a matter. I will then call you as appropriate. Please can I emphasise the importance of keeping your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. Just a reminder that the method of voting on matters will be that I shall start by asking for any councillors who are voting against the matter to say so first, followed by those abstaining. That will give myself and the officers a chance to see whether there appears to be a majority of those in favour of a matter and should avoid the need to read out the names of all councillors. I will remind you of this when we get later into the meeting. Please remember that this meeting is still being broadcast in the normal way via Facebook Live, so members of the public can still see and hear what is being said and decided. So please be aware of what is in your background. Now, may I call upon Mark Devon, Democratic Services Officer, to carry out a roll call of all those present. Mark.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just ask councillors who are in attendance to state that you're present when I call your name, please? Right Worshipful Lord Mayor, Councillor Peter Holland.
Here.
Thank you. Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Mrs. Henson.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Atkinson.
Sorry, here. Sorry, was I on?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Begley. I don't believe Councillor Begley's in the room. Councillor Bialik.
Present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Branston.
Present.
Councillor Branston, thank you. Councillor Buswell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Foll.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Foggin.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Gassane.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Hannaford.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor David Henson.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Ledbetter.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Lyons.
Present.
Thank you. We have received apologies from Councillor Martin. Councillor Kevin Mitchell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Michael Mitchell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Diana Moore.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Jemima Moore.
Present.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Councillor Morse.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Newby.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Packham.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Present.
Well, thank you. Councillor Quance.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sheldon.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sills.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sparks.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Vizard.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Wardle.
Present.
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor Warwick. So Councillor Williams.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Wright.
Present.
Thank you. And if I may, Lord Mayor, just confirm roll call attendance of officers in attendance. So Chief Executive and Growth Director Kareem Hassan.
Present.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Executive Bindu Arjun.
Present.
Thank you. Director of Corporate Services Barn Al Kafaji.
Present.
Thank you. Director of Finance David Hodgson.
Present.
Thank you. And Corporate Manager Democratic Civic Support John Street.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And we have myself, Mark Devon, Howard Bassett and Sharon Sissons as Democratic Services Officers in attendance as well, Lord Mayor. And I confirm we are quorate to proceed.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you, members. The first item on the agenda relates to the minutes of the extraordinary and ordinary meetings of Council held on the 23rd of February 2021. Is someone prepared to move these minutes as a correct record of the proceedings?
Yes, I'll move them, Lord Mayor.
Yeah, I'll second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. All in favour?
That looks unanimous, Lord Mayor. The minutes have been approved.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to advise you of some official communications. I have still managed to continue by virtual means with a varied programme of events, from the Big Sleep Out on the 5th of March, the Exeter College Awards Ceremony on the 25th of March, and hosting a virtual coffee morning and quiz on the 8th of April, with all proceeds going to my chosen charity, the Exeter City Community Trust. I've recently helped, also physically this time, to plant a memorial dove tree with our leader, Councillor Bialik, in Northern Hay Gardens on the National Day of Reflection on the 23rd of March, in memory of all those who sadly lost their lives during the coronavirus pandemic. The Guildhall, which was more recently been lit up on many different occasions, was also illuminated, along with other prominent landmarks and buildings around the country. Recently, we said farewell to a familiar face at the Guildhall. Most of you will know Shirley Clark, a valuable part of the support team caring for the Guildhall. She just retired after 15 years dedicated service. and will be sadly missed. And continuing with the theme of farewells, we will also be saying goodbye to those members who are not standing in this year's City Council election, but who between them have given many: David Henson, Robert Lamb, Rachel Lyons and Keith Owen. And from the chair, I would like to give, well, three of them, David, Rachel and Keith, the opportunity, if they so wish, just to say a few words for a minute or so, no longer, on their thoughts as they retire. David, would you like to speak?
Can I just thank yourself and all your members of your organisation for the very nice way in which we've been treated over the years. I certainly enjoyed it. Sorry to be leaving, but I believe there are younger people out there that can probably do a better job. So we'll leave them to it. But thank you very much, and thank you to all the officers who have been so kind during my time as well. Thank you. Thank
you, David. And Rachel?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I'd like to reiterate what David has said. I've enjoyed my 21 years. I've been on this council on and off, and everybody during that time we've worked together, especially Councillor Henson and I, Councillor Yolanda Henson and I. We shared the ward for many years, and we always worked well together. And I think that is testament to the citizens and everybody in the City Council, in that we do work together, even though we are of opposing views. And so, yes, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for all the help that I've had. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Over to you, Keith. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. The trouble with coming last out of the three, that everyone's really said it. So, but obviously I would sincerely like to thank all the council officers that I've been dealing with over the last 9 years. Almost without exception, they've been very helpful. sorry, officers, that was a tongue-in-cheek comment. I thought I'd leave you with that one. But no, thank you all the officers on the council, and also the councillors I've worked alongside of all political parties, almost without exception. Sorry, another tongue-in-cheek one I couldn't resist. But I've enjoyed it, or most of it, and I wish you all well in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you all. We wish you health and happiness in the future. I have one other item that I wanted to talk about very, very briefly. And I have been able to get out once or twice as Lord Mayor on a proper visit. And I'll just read you this piece. After a hugely challenging time, Exeter has come alive. As COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted, our high street has come to life. Last Monday, as Lord Mayor, I was delighted to share in the celebration of the opening of a new shop, Chiropody, which has relocated from Sybil Street. It's part of a chain of 44 stores across the United Kingdom. And they're an aspirational company who wish to be part of a successful economy, which I'm confident is just around the corner. COVID-19 plunged our retail trade here in Exeter into paralysis, but now is the time for shops to reopen and allow that recovery to start. I'd also like to take this opportunity from the chair of paying tribute to the people of Exeter who've adhered to the simple message: stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. Cautiously opening the doors of our shops again is one way that we've been able to manage the complex challenges that the virus has thrown at us. And finally, I would like to say about Chiropody, if you do have problems with your feet, they have an amazing piece of kit. It doesn't just measure the length and width. It will scan them and x-ray them, and you'll stand on this. It's like stepping into Star Wars, and they will tell you what kind of shoes you will need. But you'll probably have to take out a mortgage to buy a pair. I picked up a pair of sports trainers, and they were knocking on £200 for that. With that, I shall leave you on that. Back to the agenda. Now that brings us to the next item on the agenda, number 3, which is the opportunity to submit an advanced public question. And I can confirm that we received a question from Mr. Peter Cleesby. Unfortunately, Peter is not able to be with us today. He has a medical appointment that he needed to test urgently. And I would like to ask John Street, Democratic Services Officer, to read his question, if you have it to hand, John.
Indeed, Lord Mayor, and thank you. The question is, since the Council has failed to respond to repeated questioning from the Exeter Observer on the topic, will the Leader of the Council now please explain why the Church of England has 2 representatives on the Livable Exeter Place Board, while other faiths and churches have none?
Thank you. And now it's for our leader, Councillor Phil Bialik, to actually give a response to Mr. Cleeseby's question. Phil, over to you.
Thank you. As leader of this council, I have established well-being at the heart of the council's strategies and priorities. Through initiatives like Wellbeing Exeter, the Community Infrastructure Levy and Sport England Delivery Pilot, we have channeled hundreds of thousands of pounds to support well-being and community capacity. You will also be aware that we have been purchasing additional land for the Valley Parks. Livable Exeter represents a fundamental shift in how we meet the challenge of building 12,000 homes over the next 20 years. Rather than build on green fields on the periphery of our city, we are seeking to build at density close to the centre, where residents can walk and cycle to work and to their facilities. This is not without challenges, and I have made a commitment on Northbrook to retain this as open space and will continue to seek opportunities to enhance existing open space, and certainly not to sell them off. But I do expect that land along the riverside and close to the city centre will be looked at for suitability for infrastructure to support development, especially infrastructure for walking and cycling, which will help meet our active travel and net zero ambitions. Sorry, Chair, I just need to refer to some of my other notes, if you just bear with me.
Leader, this is your response to Councillor Mr. Cleeseby's
yes, correct.
question. Yeah.
The cathedral, over the course of the year, the chair of the board has invited a number of people to join the board in part as consequence of the issues that have emerged during this pandemic. This has been an extraordinary year, and our leading institutions have been able to have frank conversations about the impact that COVID has had on their sectors and organisations. It has also raised issues that have highlighted gaps on the board, and no doubt will continue to be the case. The cathedral is a major institution in the city, at the heart of tourism and visitor economy, and probably the biggest visitor draw in the city centre. In a very practical way, COVID-19 and the production of a recovery plan highlighted the value of having the very Reverend Jonathan Greener, Dean of the Cathedral, on the board. Bishop Robert is a significant figure in the spiritual life of the city and brings an insight and sensitivity to issues such as well-being that is unique as the Bishop of Exeter, and provides a linkage to the wider Devon community and the role of the city in the region. The city is extremely fortunate that the leaders of our city's institutions are prepared to give up so much of their time in support of the city and to apply themselves to the challenges we face for the good of the city. The elected representatives that sit on the board are the leaders of Devon County Council and myself as the leader of Exeter City Council. The board therefore gives the council leaders an opportunity to discuss and hear from the key stakeholders in the city, and an opportunity to inform others about the work of our councils. The agenda is set by the chair of the board. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Leader, for such a comprehensive reply. In the absence of Mr. Cleasby, there can be no supplementary question, and we will now move on to agenda item number 4, the suspension of standing orders. As you may be aware, there may not be the opportunity to extend the current temporary legislation which allows for council meetings to take place via virtual methods. We have very successfully continued with our meetings virtually using Zoom, but the temporary legislation to allow us to continue to hold remote council meetings will cease on the 7th of May, and we shall need to return to physical meetings after that. A legal challenge has been launched to seek a ruling on the legal position, and following a High Court hearing on the 21st of April, the outcome of that should be known very soon. But we do have a plan for the eventuality that the government's position is confirmed, with a return to physical meetings, including the council's forthcoming annual meeting, which we are currently planning to be held at the Corn Exchange. Although I understand there are building works going on there, and it may be necessary to change that. I understand the government has started a consultation on whether provision for virtual or hybrid meetings with a mix of physical and virtual meetings could be made for the future. However, we have to make provision now, and I ask members to vote on the following 2 recommendations so that we have the necessary authority to be able to hold our meetings in the most suitable venue. And so firstly, at agenda item 4, we need to vote to suspend standing orders. And to do that, we need to pass the following recommendation. I will make this recommendation from the chair, and it will be seconded by our leader, Councillor Phil Bialik. And the recommendation is, and it's in front of you on the screen, Sharon's called it up, that in accordance with Standing Order number 48, suspension of standing orders by council, Standing Order number 47, variation and revocation of standing orders by council, be suspended to allow for consideration of the following item. Right. I have proposed it. It's been seconded by John. Phil, can you second it?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Now then, we will move straight to the vote. Are there any members who wish to vote against this specific recommendation?
Pardon, Lord Mayor. Councillor Wardle's raised a hand for a question.
Okay. Right, Councillor Wardle.
Sorry, I put the hand up at the wrong time, Lord Mayor. My apologies.
Okay. Quite understand. Are there any colleagues who wish to vote against this recommendation? Mark, can you check? I can only see one screen.
I'm just having a look for you now, Lord Mayor. No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Right, may I ask for any abstentions?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor. So I would confirm that the recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mark. A clear majority in favour of that recommendation. So I deem it to be carried. Right. We now need to look at the next part of the recommendation as item 5. So now at agenda item 5, we carry on with the following matter. And I ask you to consider a recommendation for a return to physical meetings in terms of being able to hold formal council meetings in any venue deemed suitable. And so the recommendation is that Standing Order 1, I think Sharon's called it up on screen again, but for those who can't see it, that Standing Order 1 be amended to allow all meetings of the council, including the annual general meeting and its committees, to be held at any venue considered suitable by the corporate manager, democratic and civic support, in consultation with the leader of the council, And once again, I move that from the chair. And I believe that our leader, Councillor Phil Bialik, wishes to second it. Phil, can you confirm that?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. We'll now move to the vote.
Lord Mayor, so we have a hand raised from Councillor Atkinson.
Councillor Atkinson.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask whether we needed to extend virtual meetings to carry on after the 7th of May. No, somebody's nodding there, just in case the judicial review does allow us to continue virtually.
Thank you for your question or your comment, your observation. I think that what we're doing tonight is a safety net to ensure that we can address all eventualities. And I'm confident that once we've done that, we will be better placed to ensure that our annual meeting goes ahead smoothly. If the court upholds the challenge, then it will be for Democratic Services lead, together with a leader, to decide whether that meeting will be held virtually or whether it would be a hybrid meeting, as they have in some councils, or it would be a physical meeting. But by doing this, we're actually giving ourselves the flexibility to choose from both if the appeal is upheld. Am I right in that, Phil?
Yes, Lord Mayor, and of course, I will consult with the other party leaders should we were, together with the Democratic Services, should we be doing something absolutely different than virtual or whatever. So rest assured, everybody, we will be discussing this. This isn't the Lord Mayor and myself and John Street taking power away from everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Given that we allow one councillor to pass comment, are there any other councillors who wish to actually not debate, but make an observation about this particular recommendation?
Got a hand raised from Councillor Hannaford, Lord Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hannaford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I mean, I certainly support this move by the leader to look at every single eventuality, but I do think it's incredibly regrettable that we're in this position because, as we know, Parliament have extended rules to meet their needs in Westminster, but they've not extended it to us in local government. And I think it's put a lot of pressure on our officers and staff. And I also think it's very regrettable that we will have members of this council, both staff and elected members, who may have to shield for family reasons and for medical reasons. And it's put extra pressure on them, and it could even deny them the democratic mandate to vote and participate in meetings if they don't want to put their family members at risk. So I do really hope that the court rules in the favour of local government, so that we can make sure that all of our members are valued and respected, and others and people with vulnerable family members aren't put under all this stress and pressure. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for your helpful comments, Councillor Hannaford. I can see that Barn Al-Kafaji has her hand up. Barn.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to highlight the recommendation before you, simply to allow us to move the venue, so move from the Guildhall to another suitable venue to enable social distancing. So we are waiting the outcome of the challenge, the JR, so that the recommendation before you has no impact on what's going on nationally in relation to moving to virtual meetings or not. So if the outcome of that allows us to go to virtual meetings, then obviously it's a matter that we will consider in the future. The recommendation is simply about having the meetings elsewhere, so move from the Guildhall if necessary to accommodate everybody physically present.
Thank you, Barn. I can see that Councillor Mitchell had his hand up. Kevin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank the leader for his reassurances in that he will speak with the other group leaders, because obviously this is a very sensitive issue for many members potentially, and I echo the comments of Councillor Hannaford as well, and I'm sure that together we can find ways of supporting members who are more vulnerable than others or have vulnerable members within their family that they need to care for. So I look forward to discussing with the leader at a later point. I'd like to thank him for his reassurances. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Mark, can you see anybody else wishing to speak?
No other hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Okay, we'll now move to the vote. Are there any councillors who wish to vote against this recommendation? Please show your hand now.
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Are there any abstentions?
Oh, one hand raised and an abstention, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Those numbers show that there is a clear majority in favour of the recommendation, so I declare it carried. The next business on the agenda are the minutes of the various committees of the council that have been held over the last couple of months since our meeting in February. Can I please remind all members that the relevant chair will present the minutes of their meeting en bloc and then ask if members have any questions to raise. If not, I will move on to the next chair to do the same. However, when it comes to the minutes of the executive, the leader will present the minutes one by one, drawing particular attention to each and every recommendation, so that members and the public are aware where decisions by full council need to be taken. An individual vote will then be taken on each recommendation from Executive Council. So, may I call upon Councillor Morse as Chair of the Planning Committee to introduce agenda item number 6, the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 22nd of February, starting on your bundle of papers on page 23. Over to you, Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. May I present the minutes of the Planning Committee dated 22nd of February 2021? Does anyone have any questions? I beg to move, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Morse. As Chair of the Planning Committee, to introduce the
I've lost everybody, so I'm just going to carry on. Could I move the minutes of the Planning Committee dated the 29th of March 2021? Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Right. Now I call upon Councillor Sills as Chair of Strategic Scrutiny Committee to introduce the minutes of that meeting held on the 18th of March, starting on page 69. Councillor Sills, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to present the minutes of Strategic Scrutiny Committee held on the 18th of March 2021. Questions or comments?
A hand raised from Councillor Diana Moore, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Moore, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sills. It was a very interesting meeting. And at the meeting, more than one member raised the issue of sexual violence, which is a serious concern, alongside people's experience of racism on the streets. It says in the minutes that the Community Safety Partnership can play a part, and I would be grateful for reassurance that this issue will be specifically considered in detail by the Community Safety Partnership over the year. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Sills, are you in a position to give that reassurance?
Sorry, my internet is quite precarious. I believe it was about committing to talking about the sexual violence issue that was discussed at the meeting. And if so, you know, as chair, of course, very happy to bring that back. But I feel that maybe the leader would like to comment on this, as it's kind of it goes beyond the realms of my scrutiny committee, I feel.
Councillor Bialik, leader, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. These issues are a concern to all members of this authority, and it's a serious issue that we all face, regardless of your political affiliation. I can assure you that we raise these issues within the community partnership, Councillor Fole is now on that committee, together with, I believe, Councillor Hussein, and I know that our people are raising these issues. I will ensure that this is brought to the attention of that committee, and I will allow them to consider it. I do know they are working very hard on all these various issues, and perhaps this tells me that perhaps not everybody is informed of what they are actually doing, and perhaps we could do that. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. I hope, Councillor Moore, that answers your question or reassures you that matters are in hand and will be put in hand to address the important issues that you've raised. Can I call upon Councillor Vizard as Chair of Customer Focus Scrutiny Committee to introduce the minutes of that meeting held on the 1st of April, starting on page 75. Councillor Vizard.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to present the minutes of the Customer Focus Scrutiny meeting held on the 1st of April 2021. Do members have any questions?
Hand raised from Councillor Moore, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Diana Moore, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In regard to minute 10, I asked a question about the High Court case, and the portfolio holder kindly provided some useful background information about the council's way of working over the past year. The court case was more recent. Please can the portfolio holder reassure me that I will receive a reply to my question about how these ways of working will be reviewed in light of the High Court ruling. Thank you.
Councillor Vizard, are you in a position to respond to that question, or would you like to put in a written response?
I think, as Councillor Moore has asked for the portfolio holder to respond, I will. I'll pass over to Councillor Williams if she feels able to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Moore. I will respond in writing to you.
Thank you. Mark, can you check if there are any other questions for the Chair of the Focus Scrutiny Committee, please?
No other hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Okay. We now move on to the next agenda item, and I call upon Councillor Wardle as Chair of the Audit and Governance Committee to introduce the minutes of that meeting held on the 10th of March, starting on page 87. I'm sure councillors will have noted, and I understand there are 2 recommendations for council's approval, and these, of course, can be debated if necessary. But I'll hand over to Councillor Wardle at this time. Councillor Wardle.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I firstly present the minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee held on the 10th of March 2021. And as you say, there are 2 recommendations. In relation to the first recommendation, minute 45, I move that recommendation. And do I have a seconder, please?
I second.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lord, but the screen though, I couldn't confirm who seconded then.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Atkinson as Vice Chair of the Audit Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Atkinson.
Okay. We can now actually answer questions. I did see a yellow hand before it disappeared into the ether, and that's Councillor Michael Mitchell. Michael, please.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I didn't want to get confused with the previous resolution. This relates to page 92, item 48, review of the corporate government's risk register, and particularly in relation to bullet point 3 and its response as minuted. Can I ask through the chair if the relevant portfolio holder or the leader can clarify, in the light of the increased risk level relating to our inability to deliver our carbon neutral aspirations for Exeter by 2030, when the executive will consider the implications of this change in risk level from medium to high?
Lord Mayor, before you do that, I'm afraid we haven't yet decided on the recommendations that have been proposed and seconded. They need to be put first before we get to that, Councillor Mitchell, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Right.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Mitchell, and I will ask you to rephrase your question when we've been through the 2 recommendations, and then we will go back to asking questions. Perhaps that was my misunderstanding as well, but hey ho, we are where we are. Do people have any observations about the recommendation that's before you? Sharon's called it up on the screen. I don't wish to read through it all because it runs to quite a bit.
No hands are raised.
Okay, are there any councillors who wish? Sorry, Mark.
Oh, sorry, no hands are raised for any questions on the recommendations. Then
I will pause again. Are there any councillors who wish to speak on this recommendation? In the absence of anybody wishing to speak, I will now move to the vote. Are there any councillors who wish to vote against this recommendation? Please show your hands now.
no hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Are there any abstentions?
And no hands are raised, Lord Mayor. So those recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Thank you. Right, we're now, there must be the second.
Lord Mayor, do I move minute 46, the recommendation on that one? Yes. I move the recommendation on minute 46 and ask, do I have a seconder for this, please?
I'll second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Sharon, would you be kind enough to call that one up, please? I think if we haven't seen it already. Thank you. Now, members, are there any colleagues who wish to speak about this recommendation, this second one under minute 46, the Code of Corporate Governance? Mark, can you see any hands?
I can't see any hands raised, Lord Mayor.
Okay, for this particular recommendation, minute 46 then, we'll move to the vote. Are there any colleagues who wish to vote against this recommendation? Please show your hand now.
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Are there any abstentions?
No hands raised for abstentions, Lord Mayor. So the recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Thank you for your help there, Mark. I now call upon the leader, Councillor Phil Bialy, because
Lord Mayor, sorry.
We've got to go back to we've got to go back to Michael Mitchell. Sorry, Michael. I do apologise for brushing over that. Michael, would you be kind enough to go again and reread the question you had from those minutes, Michael?
You're on mute, Councillor Mitchell.
Helpful if I unmute myself. Page 92, item 48, review of corporate governance risk register. It relates to bullet point 3 and the answer as minuted. Can I ask through the chair if the relevant portfolio holder or the leader can clarify, in the light of the increased risk level relating to our inability to deliver our carbon neutral aspirations for Exeter by 2030, when the executive will consider the implications of this change in risk level from medium to high? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for your question. I can see that Councillor Sutton has her hand up, and I assume that Councillor Rachel Sutton is the portfolio holder. Would you like to respond, Rachel? Or were you going to say something completely different?
No, if that's acceptable to the leader, because I think it was addressed to either the leader or the portfolio holder. And at the risk of sounding a bit flippant, the short answer is at the appropriate time, Councillor Mitchell, because what you're saying is when will we address something that may or may not happen at some future point. I very much hope it doesn't happen, but should that seem to be the case, then the executive clearly will look at it as a matter of priority. But I can't possibly give you a date because we all very much hope that we don't end up in that situation.
Lord Mayor, if it also helps to supplement what Councillor Sutton has said, and hopefully this will help Councillor Mitchell, because as we can't see round corners, that's correct. But I've discussed this with the Director of Finance and the Chief Executive, and those matters which occur as red or likely to become red and therefore require my attention and also the Chief Executive's attention will be brought to us. And if that needs to go to the Executive, it will, because I want to make sure that we can deliver the Labour Party's manifesto whilst also protecting the Council's position. So I can assure you we are looking at that and it will come to Executive, but I endorse exactly what Councillor Sutton has said. You know, until we're presented with these things, there's not much we can do.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. I don't wish to miss anybody else out. Mark, can you check if there are any other colleagues, any other councillors who wish to ask a question of the chair of that committee that came out of the minutes?
No other hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Right. I'll read again. I call upon Councillor Bialik as chair of the executive to introduce the minutes of the two executive meetings, the first being held on the 9th of March 2021 at agenda item number 11. On your bundle of papers, it should be on page 95. Over to you, Councillor Bialik.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. 9th of March, minute 29, minute 30, declarations of interest, minute 31, minute 32, Lord Mayor. There is one resolved matter here, and there is one recommendation for us to approve the Council Housing and Resident Involvement Strategy 21 to 25 and the increase in staff resources required to deliver the action plan. I so move, Lord Mayor.
May I have a seconder for that recommendation, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Now open it for debate if anybody wishes to discuss this particular recommendation. Mark, can you search for hands, please? We have Councillor Hannaford first. Councillor Hannaford, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I very much support this move and hope that Council will agree it. As chair of the Housing Engagement Board, working with Councillor Wright as the portfolio holder, we really want to get this right for the council. As you know, we have thousands of our own property and our tenants, and it's absolutely essential that we engage with them properly in a meaningful manner and have what I call deep conversations with them about the range of issues that they face, their needs, and all the repairs that we do, and look into the future what properties we might need to future-proof our scoping work. So it is going to be money that will be invested and it will be well spent, and we will carefully monitor this through the Housing Board, which includes outside bodies and our own tenants. So I hope Council will support this. It's an important part of our strategy in managing our housing stock. And as I said, you know, the HRA is a massive amount of money and investment. It often dwarfs the council's own finances, so it's absolutely essential that we're certain that we're trying to do the right things in the right way. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hannaford. Mark, are there any other colleagues wishing to speak?
I can't see any other hands raised, Lord Mayor. I just want to have a quick scan through. No other hands are raised.
Councillor Bialik, would you like to summarise, or are you happy to go to the vote?
Happy to go to the vote, Lord Mayor.
Okay. on this recommendation under minute 32, are there any councillors who wish to vote against this recommendation? Please show your hand now.
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any councillors who wish to abstain on this recommendation?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor, so that has been carried. Those recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Back to you, Councillor Bialik.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Minute 33, Skills Strategy Framework. 2 resolved minutes there, Lord Mayor. Minute 34, amendment to section 3D of the Council Constitution relating to delegation to the service lead environmental health. And Lord Mayor, and there is a recommendation on community safety, Lord Mayor, which I would like to move.
Could I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. An opportunity for colleagues to pass comment, ask questions or debate. Are there any hands showing, please, Mark?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Bialik, do you wish to add anything to the recommendation, or do we move to the vote?
Move to the vote, Lord Mayor.
Councillors, are there any councillors who wish to vote against this recommendation?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Are there any abstentions?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor, so those recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mark. I move back to the leader, Councillor Phil Bialik.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Minute 35, Glenthorne Road. Minute 36. Minute 37, report on members' training, and there is 3 resolved items there, Lord Mayor. I wish to move the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. That now brings us to the next executive meeting, and I call upon Councillor Bialik to introduce the minutes of that committee meeting held on the 6th of April 2021 at agenda item 12, starting on your bundle, page 99. Councillor Bialik.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Tuesday the 6th of April of this year, minute 38, minute 39, minute 40, and minute 41, Lord Mayoralty, and there is a recommendation, Lord Mayor, to nominate Councillor Oliver as the Lord Mayor-elect and Councillor Quantz as the Deputy Lord Mayor for the ensuing municipal year. I so move, Lord Mayor.
Please, may I have a seconder for that?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Rachel Sutton, thank you very much. I don't believe that we need to debate this, and I'll move straight to the vote. Are there any councillors who wish to vote against this recommendation?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Are there any abstentions?
No hands raised for abstentions, Lord Mayor, so those recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Right. From the chair, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Oliver and Councillor Quantz on their new positions, which they will take up on the 18th of May. But we can talk more about that at annual council. Back to the leader, Councillor Bialik.
Minute 42, overview of general fund revenue budget, quarter 3. And Lord Mayor, there are 4 recommendations which I would like to move formally, Chair.
May I have a seconder for those, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. I have a question for John Street. May we vote on these 4 together, or do they need to be voted individually? John.
Together is fine, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Do councillors have any observations about any one of these 4 recommendations before you?
No hands are raised for questions, Lord Mayor.
Okay, we'll move straight to the vote. Are there any councillors who wish to vote against those 4 recommendations en bloc?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor, for against.
Are there any abstentions on those 4 recommendations?
No hands are raised for abstentions, Lord Mayor, so the recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Bialik, back to you.
Minute 43, 2021 General Fund Capital Monitoring Statement, Q3, Lord Mayor. And there are 2 recommendations, as you can see, which I would like to move formally.
May I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Are there any colleagues who wish to speak on these recommendations?
I have a question from Councillor Diana Moore, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Diana Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have a question of clarification. In the executive papers relating to this minute, it explains that the costs have risen because recyclate has been sent to other sites for processing because of issues at the materials reclamation facility. Please can the portfolio holder or leader confirm where these sites are and if it's a spot purchase or ongoing contract in place for this processing that is causing an overspend on the budget and how long it is expected to continue for? Thank you.
Councillor Bialik, would you like to speak or do you wish to delegate it to your portfolio holder?
Lord Mayor, it's a complex question, and we will ensure that a director gives Councillor Moore a detailed written response, which can be shared with the full council members on this point, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. I was going to ask that you did circulate the response to everyone so that we will all know what the answer to that question was, that important question. And so, have we voted yet on those, John?
Not yet, Lord Mayor.
Right. Any other questions or comments, observations around the recommendations before you?
No other hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Right, we move to the vote. Are there any colleagues who wish to vote against?
No hands are raised for against, Lord Mayor.
Are there any abstentions?
No hands raised for abstentions, Lord Mayor. So that is recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mark. Back to the leader, back to Phil. Councillor Bialik.
Minute 44, the 2021 HRA Budget Monitoring Report for Q3, Lord Mayor, and you will see there are 2 recommendations which I would formally move.
May I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. This is an opportunity for colleagues to ask any questions, discuss or debate those 2 recommendations. Do any councillors wish to speak?
There are no hands raised, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mark. We'll move straight to the vote. Are there any councillors who wish to vote against these recommendations? Please show your hand now.
Councillor Ledbetter, is your hand raised on that one? Sorry. No, thank you. No hands raised, Lord Mayor.
Are there any abstentions?
No hands raised, Lord Mayor. So those recommendations have been carried unanimously.
Thank you, colleagues. Councillor Bialik, are there any more items on that?
No, Lord Mayor, I wish
meeting?
to move the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Which now brings us to item number 13, notice of motion from Councillor Harvey under Standing Order 6 It's around climate and ecological emergency. And I would like to call upon Councillor Harvey to, let's just get this right. For the purposes of those watching tonight's proceedings, can you please read out your notice of motion? Councillor Harvey.
Yes, I can read out the. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I can read out the notice of motion.
And before you do, could I ask Sharon if you could? Oh, you've done that. Thank you.
Before I read it out, can I just draw your attention to a drafting error, which says that in February 2019 we committed being a net carbon zero. It was in fact July 2019. Okay, I will read the whole motion. This council notes that 1. Exeter City Council declared a climate emergency in July 2019 and committed to becoming net zero carbon by 2030. Recognising the scale and urgency of the global challenge from climate change, following the IPCC report published in October 2018, to contribute to achieving its net zero objectives, ECC has A. Adopted a net carbon zero roadmap in conjunction with Exeter City Futures to achieve net zero carbon targets. Secured £1.6 million of European development funding to install a solar farm and battery storage on waste ground close to the council's depots. In the past year, delivered the following carbon saving measures: financial savings of £630,000, energy savings of 2,300,050 kilowatt hours, carbon savings of 550 tonnes, added 21 new 3 and 4 bedroom houses built to passive house standards to its stock, commissioned the building of St Sidwell's Point, the UK's first leisure centre to be built to passive house standards, and started the rollout of the retrofitting of all 4,000 plus council housing stock to our super energy efficient standards. 2. Demonstrated its commitment to protecting the environment and greening the city by consulting residents on the creation of a citywide tree strategy, implementing an ambitious tree planting programme, including 2,000 trees on the Munkerton Ridgeline and new woodland of 300 trees off Lancelot Road, encouraging biodiversity through wildflower planting and naturalizing grass areas, and a phased reduction in the use of glyphosate weed killer. This council believes that Exeter City Council has shown through its net zero carbon achievements, tree planting and green space activities.
I've got a word copy from there as I'm digging them out.
Its commitment to contributing to achieving its net zero carbon ecological objectives. We all have a responsibility, both individually and collectively, to mitigate the harmful effects of climate change and ecological decline. 3. Local authorities are well placed to initiate the changes that can contribute to the mitigation of the harm caused by continuing to set ambitious targets to address the climate and ecological emergency. 4. The Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill provides a timely evaluation and summary of the actions required by government in order to achieve climate and ecology objectives. This council therefore resolves: 1. To declare an ecological emergency to supplement and strengthen the climate change emergency declaration of July 2019 by this council. 2. To continue to work with partners both locally and regionally, including Devon County Council, to achieve net zero carbon objectives and to conserve and support the recovery of the natural environment. 3. To support community consultation with respect to identifying solutions to address both climate and ecological emergencies. 4. To request that our 2 MPs support the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Do we have a seconder for this motion to council? I believe it's going to be Councillor Branston. Can you come in, please?
I second this motion, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor, thank you.
I'm going to pause now. Thank you. We've had a proposal, we've had a seconder, but before you there is an amendment by Councillor Diana Moore, which is seconded by Councillor Kevin Mitchell. What will happen then is that we will debate the amendment, and Councillor Diana Moore will have the opportunity to wrap that debate up as the mover. but the final word on that will be given by David Harvey, who made the original proposal. We will then take a vote on that particular amendment, and depending on the outcome, I'll then brief you on what's going to happen next. And I now call upon Councillor Diana Moore to put her amendment before you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Are these available to be on screen?
I'm sorry, could you say it again?
Thank you. So, thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I welcome this motion, and I'm sure it will receive cross-party backing. And I'd like to propose these two amendments and reserve my right to speak.
Yeah, that's fine. I said that you would. May we have a seconder for this amendment? I believe it's going to be Councillor Kevin Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I'd like to formally second these amendments, and I reserve my right to speak also. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And it's now for colleagues to debate the amendment or to pass comment and discuss this amendment. And I open it to the floor, and I rely on Mark, because I've only got 9 people on my screen, to see whose hands are showing and who wishes to speak first. Mark, can you keep a tally?
I can, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Gussain. Sorry, has her hand raised, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Gussain, you go first, please.
Yes, I think this motion is pretty good, and I think it's well written. As to the amendments, I personally cannot see the point of them. I will answer particularly to start with 2, though it's of course important to look at the strategies, but we should not be prescribed at this juncture. It will be left to portfolio holder and council officers to bring forward the report as to the mechanisms by which this strategy is forwarded. Also for, as to point 3 as well, the consultation can take different forms and can be conducted on different levels. Forming a citizens' assembly is only one form of such consultations, and from my own experience, does usually engage only one level of participants. I think there are different ways to engage communities and to deliver initiatives to tackle the climate and ecological emergency. Again, it should not be only one prescribed approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. I can see that Councillor Sutton has her hand raised. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I welcome Councillor Diana Moore saying that she intends to support the motion proposed by Councillor Harvey and seconded by Councillor Branston. And I do note that she has been supportive of the Labour Group's considerable achievements on our green agenda. I do have to speak against the amendment, though, and I will explain why. And in particular, I wanted to concentrate on part A about publishing a carbon budget and an annual audit for the city and the council, demonstrating progress. And I hope while I've explained this, Councillor Moore, you will understand my thinking behind it. If we actually produced an annual audit, it would be a significant drain on what I know that you realise is limited capacity and resources. And my fear is that it would not deliver anything like the level of detail which you would be seeking and which would be useful. And I think that given that we are talking about climate emergency and ecological emergency, that the really key thing for this authority in both the short and the medium term is that we spend time on actually doing things that are going to make a difference rather than measuring things. And the executive focus is, as you will be very well aware, because I know you supported them, on the kind of tangible progress like the retrofitting of our council housing stock to make them climate ready and to tackle fuel poverty, to continue building passive house new accommodation and supporting active travel through the city. And you would expect me to say that. But also, it's not to suggest that measuring isn't important. It is important, but we need to do it in a way that actually doesn't divert much needed resources away from actually getting on with the tasks in hand. And those are the tasks in hand that are going to address the climate emergency and improve the lives of the citizens that we all represent. So what I think is that we need to actually look at how we measure our carbon footprint, and we do report annually on our carbon footprint. We have published the 2018 to 2019 figures and acknowledge that we are a little behind. We've had a COVID pandemic situation over the last 12 months, but very shortly we should have caught up by publishing the 2019 to 2020 and 20 to 21 figures, which you will be able to have a look at. At the moment, we're less than a month into the new financial year. And again, as all councillors will be aware, we're facing financial uncertainties brought about in large part by the pandemic we've been addressing over the last 12 months. Therefore, really, I would be reluctant to ask council to commit extra funding going on measuring ahead of the work that we need to do, both on tackling the climate emergency and the ecological emergency, and also equally important, undertaking work on the medium-term financial plan to address a shortfall of over £6 million. And that has to be our priority. So I hope you will accept that in the spirit that's intended. We welcome your support for the main motion, but I can't support the amendment for those reasons. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. There will be 3 further speakers eventually. That'll be Kevin Mitchell, Diana Moore and David Harvey. But are there any other? Councillor Bialik, I can see your hand up. Councillor Bialik.
You're on mute.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. There's another part of the amendment which we find difficult to support, and this is relating to local nature recovery strategies, which will play a role in net zero plans. And I assume that when Devon County Council has adopted a local recovery strategy, all of the district councils will be supportive of the strategy. The emerging Exeter local plan will take the document into account when formulating our local plan policy framework. Indeed, I would hope that we can work with our neighbouring districts throughout the county to develop a coordinated approach to carbon sequestration and enriching biodiversity. Indeed, I have already extended an offer to the Devon district leaders to work together to produce a collective response to these issues. I've also extended an invitation to the people behind the North Devon biosphere to speak to our members, whether through scrutiny or overview or as a member briefing. We have also looked at examples of rewilding projects close to the city that provide valuable lessons for us all. And I'm sure the areas of outstanding natural beauty and national parks can all teach us lessons about land management to support local nature recovery. The Earl of Devon has been championing this agenda for some time and has mentioned to myself on a number of occasions the importance of the issue and the role of the Ex and the hinterland to the city of the net zero aspirations. This is a strategic issue and goes well beyond the city of Exeter, and we want to play a positive role. in supporting the aims of recovering strategy. It is therefore, we are happy to support the principle, but can't agree to the amendment at this stage, as we believe that this is an area scrutiny committee may want to look at in the terms of their contributions, and this work could be done to make the Net Zero Exeter, and members may want to have interaction with that and to bring it forward to partner Devon Wildlife Trust in their work to be done. So in short, we are not dismissing it out of hand. We want the work, Lord Mayor, to be done by the scrutiny, so we all understand exactly what the local nature recovery strategies are, how we can incorporate that into the local plan, and how we can all have an effective part in that through scrutiny committee. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Before I call upon Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Moore and Councillor Harvey to speak, are there any other colleagues who wish to talk to this motion? Mark.
No other hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Okay, well, I now give Councillor Kevin Mitchell the opportunity to make his contribution. Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I note the comments of the various members, portfolio holder and leader, on the amendments, which are disappointing because the amendments that we're putting forward were aimed to try and strengthen this motion, because as already stated by Councillor Diana Moore, we're all on board on this and very supportive of the initiatives that the council are putting forward. But in my view, there's a vital role to play in terms of auditing and scrutiny and reviewing the process. So I listened very carefully to the portfolio holder's comments, but in my view, unless we have those regular audits and those regular updates, we can't 100% see how well we're doing on the roadmap. And it would then be key for members to enable potentially more resources to be put forward, if necessary, to move this so we do hit our 2030 target, which I think is vital. I'm also pleased that there's been some clarification on when we actually declared the climate emergency, because as members will know, in February 2019, it was I and Councillor Musgrove that did attempt to declare a climate emergency at that time, but that was delayed until July the 23rd, I believe, is when it actually occurred. So there is support for the motion tonight, but we do strongly feel that these amendments would be very helpful. So I would ask members to reconsider and to support the amendments, because they're not wrecking amendments, they're there to improve this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. I'll now move on to Councillor Diana Moore.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the speakers previously. So the bill, if enacted, will ensure that the UK abides by annual national carbon budgets and enact the transition to a carbon neutral economy, and that burden must not fall on the poorest in society. So we, as a council, we really must step up to that challenge to demonstrate progress and account for greenhouse gas emissions for both the city and the council. Otherwise, it's just a nice aspiration with no certainty that we are definitely going in the right direction. So likewise, the bill seeks to ensure that the UK restores and regenerates its habitats by implementing robust measures to protect and enhance the variety, abundance and health of soils and biodiversity in both rural and urban human-modified ecosystems, and in doing so, it enriches natural carbon sinks. So I'm sure, like me, all councillors here receive many emails about the state of Exeter's air, about trees being felled and other concerns that demonstrates people's real concern about nature. So as the city grows, we really must ensure there is space for nature. So the local recovery strategy is under development. And I note the leaders' comments on this. Other district councils are already engaging with this, and I would welcome it if Councillor Bialik would be able to contact them to reinstate what you've just said, to commit to this process. So that would be very helpful. The motion calls for consultation. This is a long way from the bill's desire, which we have no doubt about to back to ensure that the strategy and solutions to enact this law are thoroughly democratic by means of a citizens' assembly. So the bill sets that out. A citizens' assembly is a randomly selected but representative sample of the UK population, and they want to work alongside government under the scrutiny of Parliament. And I applaud the work of Devon County Council to set up a citizens' assembly. And I sincerely believe that the council can do more to engage the people in Exeter in contributing to the decisions that will impact on our lives and our city, particularly over some of the more controversial issues. We need to engage people and take people with us, deliberating in the difficult decisions that must be made. As the amendment proposes, a citizens' assembly is one way to enable deep engagement. It isn't the only way that is said. It also calls for community engagement. This might be consultation, but there's other ways to engage communities. So actually, the amendment is calling for a range of actions. So I would urge you to reconsider to support these amendments to demonstrate our council's commitment to progressing these issues at a local level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. We now move back to Councillor David Harvey to speak if he wishes. Councillor Harvey.
My only comment here, I think I ought to be asked if I wish to accept these amendments into my motion. Is that not correct, John?
Well, first of all, do you have any contribution to the debate?
I have no contribution to make at this point. My colleagues, Councillor Sutton and Councillor Bialik, have explained the position very powerfully.
Well, I think if that's the case, Councillor Harvey, then from the chair, I will move to the vote. Okay, is that all right, John Street? Can we move to the vote now?
Yes, that's fine, Lord Mayor. It would have been for Councillor Harvey to consider whether the amendment could be included in his motion, and I think it's clear that that's not the case, if I may speak for him.
That's correct, John.
Okay, and then there will have to be a count here. Are that those councillors who wish to vote against this motion, please show your hand now. Against, not the motion, against the amendment that's on there that we've just now debated. So it's against the amendments, not the motion. Give you a chance, Mark, to count the hands.
So just wait for the blue hands move the screen. Sorry, I'm just going to just a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23. I can see 23 raised hands for a vote against, Lord Mayor.
Right.
Could
I have a show of hands?
So it's Councillor Sparks. Sorry, but I couldn't see. Yeah, your screen was off, so I wasn't sure if you had that. If you're where you were with that one, then. So,
yeah, sorry, I just pop away and use the facilities. Therefore, I didn't vote.
No. Thank you. That's 23.
Could I now have a show of hands for those councillors voting for the amendment? For the amendment, please show now. And you guys can't vote twice.
For goodness sake, somebody take your hands down.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see 4 hands raised for in favour.
Is I'd like to clarify one thing. Councillor Richard Branston is showing for the amendment. Is that correct?
Lord Mayor, no, that's not correct.
Oh, I have to lower your hand.
Right. I shouldn't really be guiding you on that. It's not my place to do so. But I did say you couldn't vote twice, Richard. And I noticed that you voted against it originally. So could we have a recount, a recount now of the people for the amendment? Could you count again, please, Mark?
4. That's 4 in favour, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And are there any abstentions?
Councillor, I can see one. Oh, sorry, 2 hands for abstaining, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Could you read out those scores, please, so everyone's clear?
Of the hands raised, Lord Mayor, that's a majority in favour of to vote against the amendment to the motion, and that has not been carried.
Thank you for that, Mark. We're now going to revert to the original proposal, the original motion that was proposed by Councillor David Harvey and seconded by Councillor Richard Branston. We don't need to read it out again, but I call upon Councillor David Harvey to speak and introduce your motion. Councillor Harvey, over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm both honoured and privileged to be proposing this motion this evening. Many councillors will recall that way back in October 2019, Councillor Williams and I brought forward a motion regarding the council's use of glyphosate. I am pleased to be able to go a stage further and propose this motion, which if passed will declare an ecological emergency, which both of these things demonstrate the green credentials of this council. I'm not going to talk for very long, as I am clear that the majority of you fully support our approach to these matters, and I thank both Councillor Moore and Councillor Mitchell for identifying with the principle behind this motion this evening, even if the detail is somewhat not appropriate for them. I see our approach to these matters as being reasonable and pragmatic and taking account of the environment and context in which we live, the pandemic and the funding situation which the council finds itself, yet understanding of the seriousness and depth of the challenge which we face as a city council, a nation and a world. So our 4 recommendations are as follows. To declare an ecological emergency. This would supplement and strengthen the climate change emergency declaration of July 2019 made by this council, helping to develop policies and enacting a strategy which meets more ambitious targets for both climate change and biodiversity loss, as well as stronger criteria of justice, responsibility and safety. 2, working with partners, utilising our place board and its members and their unique links both across the county, the southwest and indeed the nation, plus other relationships which we have developed, such as with Devon Wildlife Trust, who look after the Valley Parks for us, who are involved with the Ash Dieback project and planting replacement trees along the principle of the correct tree in the correct place. The Northbrook consultation as well. Saving Devon's Treescapes and Trees for Cities, who have supported tree planting across the city in recent years, and I thank my colleagues who have been with me out in the cold and wet planting trees to help conserve the canopy of Exeter. 3, community consultation will be supported again, building on the work we have already done with our draft strategies on trees, parks and open spaces and play parks, where we had working parties where members of other political parties were invited and attended and made comment. We are already in touch with many community groups, the Friends of Exhibition Fields, the One for Planters and many others. And we actively support new groups who are engaged in activities such as litter picking and very many other projects such as rewilding. And I note that in my very own ward that a considerable amount of work has been done recently. in terms of replanting and rewilding. If anybody would like to come and look at it, they will be most welcome. Finally, I understand that our local Labour MP, the Right Honourable Ben Bradshaw, has agreed to support the bill. So, to my knowledge, our other MP has not yet supported the bill, but if that could happen, we would be extremely grateful. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. When I do now open it up to the floor, I would respectfully request that my colleagues don't revisit things that have already been stated in the previous debate or anything that Councillor Harvey has mentioned. If you have anything new you would like to add to this discussion, please show your hand now. I can see that Councillor Richard Branston will be the first to speak. Councillor Branston.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Councillor
Yes.
Branston, I can
Yes.
hear you, but I can't see you.
No, okay, that's better than nothing. Lord Mayor, I second this motion because this will make a positive contribution to achieving this council's commitment to become zero carbon by 2030. I will be brief, Lord Mayor, because I have no doubt that members will want to debate this detailed, compelling and constructive motion in detail. However, I would like to make a few comments. This council has already introduced a very wide variety of initiatives and policies, which have included declaring a climate emergency. Members will recall that this Exeter City Council's environmental initiatives have included investing in 13 acres of privately owned land in our valley parks, working with Devon Wildlife Trust to create wildflowers, gardens, protect bees, insect populations, protecting the open green spaces in Northbrook, Bull Meadow and Clifton Hill. In addition, car recycling points and solar panels have been installed in all the council's car parks and buildings. The City Council is also in the process of investigating the structural condition of Trews Wear to establish whether it is a viable option to build a power turbine which would increase renewable energy generation and reduce carbon emissions. Lord Mayor, I can understand that a few members of this council will have been disappointed that their motion has not been carried. However, we are on the verge of elections and there is a temptation to engage in political point scoring. Nevertheless, it would be extremely disappointing if any member of this council did not support this vital motion. This council has a track record of working together on major issues which are in the interest of the residents we were elected to represent. This, I think, Lord Mayor, is one of the most important issues this council will be debating since 2010, when this council overwhelmingly came together to support the campaign for this city to become a unitary authority. The newly elected government reversed the previous government's decision to award unitary status to Exeter. However, we cannot afford to lose this epic battle on climate change. And I trust that this council will again unite in support of this motion to ensure the quality of life for further generations of this city is secured. In conclusion, Lord Mayor, I think that the comments of councillors Keith Owen, Rachel Lyons and David Henson is proof of the previous excellent record of councillors working together for always for the benefit of residents of Exeter. And I hope everyone will support this motion. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Branston. I can see two hands. I can see Councillor Ledbetter and Councillor Vizard. The first to speak will be Councillor Ledbetter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, members will be pleased to hear that I don't wish to debate this in great detail. Just to say we're very happy to support this. It's a very important matter, and I will certainly speak to the other MP Simon Jupp about obtaining his support, but certainly we're in favour of this. And I would like the portfolio holder to add on certainly Countess Weir, who are very keen to get trees planted, as are people in Topsham and also in the St Louis ward. So I'll just raise that at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ledbetter. Councillor Vizard.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. And can I welcome Councillor Ledbetter's plans to have a conversation with Simon Jupp. I wish him luck. Thank you very much for this motion.
What is on speed dial?
Councillor Harvey and Councillor Branston, both of whom spoken extremely well. I just wanted to say, I've got a young family. I moved back to Exeter, having grown up here in 2009. One of the reasons I did so was because of the council and the growth of the city, but the growth in the right ways and the importance placed on the environment. There are significant challenges. We all know that. We all agree on the things that still need to happen. But I really welcome what's set out in this motion and what the council has done. There are a huge list of things I could run through. I won't. But I just wanted to mention one thing, and that is that the amount of waste, this is DEFRA statistics, the amount of waste per person that Exeter residents produce was the 9th lowest in the country, is now the 7th lowest in the country. Quite often misunderstood the recycling rates in the city. So that's fantastic. And that is before, of course, the introduction of the curbside food waste and glass collection, which is coming in the autumn and will be massively welcomed. I know I'm hearing a lot about that on the doorstep, and quite rightly, and people are delighted to hear that that is coming our way. So very, very happy and pleased to support this motion. And I would echo calls for everyone to do so. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vizard. Councillor Diana Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about the bill and the community support that has backed the climate and ecological emergency bill in Parliament, and also the support from the community to get this motion brought here to Council tonight. So the climate and ecology emergency bill was drafted by scientists, legal experts, ecological economists and environmentalists. The CEE bill was designed specifically to reverse the climate and ecological breakdown that we face. So the bill was tabled in Parliament by Caroline Lucas of the Green Party, and I'm really pleased that it has now received the support of over 100 MPs across 8 political parties from England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So in Parliament, the bill would enshrine the demonstration of real progress rather than wishful thinking, and commit to more than consultation to enable communities to play a real part in the decisions that affect our climate, our natural environment, and all our lives and livelihoods now and for generations to come. So in July 2019, Exeter City Council declared a climate emergency, and I am pleased that it included an amendment from the Progressive Group to recognise the biodiversity crisis. So I am happy to reinstate my commitment to tackling the climate and ecological emergencies. Whatever words we use, we must rapidly advance the speed and scale of action. It is disappointing that the ruling group are not willing to accept the constructive additions to the motions. And I do share Councillor Mitchell's concern about the risk register raising the level of risk of the council not delivering the net zero 2030 target to high. The risk of failure to achieve this target will have very serious consequences on our climate, our biodiversity and our communities. So I'm happy to reinstate my commitment to tackling the climate and ecological emergencies, but words need to be followed by deeds and proof that we are making real progress towards net zero 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Mark, can you see any other hands before I call upon Councillor David Harvey to wind up?
Can I just say
Councillor
my hand keeps disappearing? I'm clicking on my hand, but it keeps disappearing.
Councillor Foggin.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to support this motion. I think this council over the years have done a wonderful job on biodiversity and things. I recall when I first became a councillor in Newton that we hadn't had any big, got no bats in Wantford as we always did have, and we got cows put up into the Valley Park to encourage the dung beetle. We now have quantity of bats up there, absolutely wonderful. There was also a big move on Chris Heath when it was built to actually rescue the primroses, sweet violets and snowdrops planted into the valley parks, not forgetting the Millennium Wood at Topsham that Councillor Margaret Midgley was involved in. And I think this council over the years has got a good record, and I'm really pleased that you're actually carry on and you're ongoing with it all. Because all the valley parts, I can remember when Ludlow Valley was actually rescued first of all, and it was by a councillor called Ivy Johns, who muted that we'd have the major builds in Quarry Lane and Woodwater Lane, and we must save nature for the people of Wantford and Exeter. And every single Labour administration since then has built on the valley parks, and they've always put nice things in all the time, night trees, massive plantations of sensible trees, nut trees and that sort of thing. And I'm very proud to be part of this council, and I'd like to say, you know, thank you, because we've always done the biodiversity thing and the saving of our valley parks.
Thank you, Councillor Foggin. I have three further speakers. Councillor Bialik, Councillor Williams and Councillor Wood. And we'll start with Councillor Bialik, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to come in behind what Councillor Foggin has just said to recognise actually the good work that has been going on by council officers. And I'm sorry that if this is politicising this issue, it was politicised when Councillor Moore says that we're not doing nothing. Northbrook Park, we've working with the Devon Wildlife Trust. Bull Meadow, what we've done there. Northbrook and also Clifton Hill. What we are doing with acquiring more space is what Alwyn has talked about. It really does begin to irritate me when there is no recognition, not one little bit of recognition in that earlier contribution on what the City Council has done, not one little bit of recognition. The net carbon plan, one of the best in the county, if not the southwest, and I would say up with the rest of the country, in how we're working with partners to try to pull that through. And all I hear is criticism. You're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. Well, I can tell you, I know we're not doing enough. I would like to do more. And if government actually, apart from makes announcements, actually allocates funds for this, we will spend it on just that to bring it about. We're fully aware of the risks that this council has to face. But come on, everybody. Get on the same page. Let's celebrate what a lot is going on in Exeter, apart from criticising every step that the portfolio holders or this group makes. We are committed to delivering the manifesto, and that is exactly what we're going to do. And it appears to me it's going to be despite you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Councillor Ruth Williams, please. I'm afraid, Ruth, you're fragmented and you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm afraid I've had to log in on another device, so you may see me twice. Everything sort of completely collapsed on my laptop, so I'm now on my iPad. Just very briefly, I think we've had quite a few instances tonight where we've been accused of not doing much, or a lack of statistics. I'd just like to remind people that one of the key things that we promised to do when Councillor Harvey and I brought forward the glyphosate motion to have a phased reduction, and that is absolutely key in terms of protecting pollinators and actually achieving improved ecological support. So that's the one thing. We've been providing reports. We actually had one back in August showing the progress that we were making, and we've done far more than just start reducing glyphosate use to protect the environment. We've actually got communities involved in it. We've looked at all sorts of different methods, and so that is a joint approach, community involvement at the front end. And I think that people who claim that they don't trust us need to actually look at the evidence. We are doing what we say we're going to do, and that should be enough. The other thing that we need to be doing also is bringing the communities with us and explaining when they see wildflowers being planted. Some people accuse us of having weeds. Well, you know, we've got a lot of educating to do to bring communities with us so that they understand what we're doing when we are wilding areas at Exeter. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Duncan Wood.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think that the big gain for this motion has for me is that the previous motion we made about climate emergency, the way to address that most councils, including ourselves, use to address it. Labour's been doing it for years and years, many years. We took the technological approach before there was a climate emergency. Other councils have followed us since. But that technological approach included being the first in the country in 2015 to put carports on top of our multi-storey car parks to house large solar arrays to generate power. That power also provides free electric charging for electric vehicle users in those car parks. You do have to pay for your parking, but you can charge your vehicle for free. Those are the sorts of examples where I think technology is an answer, not an answer, it's a contribution towards how the species needs to adapt to address the climate change emergency. On the back of that, we also did the solar array on the Madford Centre, which is a massive array. And now we are heading towards a city solar farm, an actual solar farm within the city limits. The power generated by that will go through a battery storage system, which means that the high level of energy generation can be delayed to meet the high need of electric power. So the battery system will stop loads of power being available in the day when it's needed in the night. It can be properly managed. Now, those are the sorts of technological issues, but on the back of that, I should mention that that solar farm will eventually charge the electric vehicles that will power and collect the food and glass recycling service that will be introduced in the autumn, which will radically, as Councillor Vizard has said, will radically address the recycling rate, which has received a lot of airtime. But Councillor Vizard was quite right in pointing out that the amount of rubbish and waste produced by the city is the 7th lowest in the nation. And we all know 50% of not a lot is much better than 50% of quite a lot. So I think the key difference for me here, though, is that the city has been looking at tree planting, something that captures carbon. It has been looking at rewilding. It has been looking at biodiversity. Now, this motion focuses on that. So it recognises what we have been doing in addition to the solar power, in addition to the technological answers to address climate change. We as a council have been working on biodiversity. We have been working on an environmental approach, on an ecological approach. And this recognises that. So we've been handling it in both directions, but this finally formally recognises that the climate change is not about replacing the energy that we use with green energy. It's a bigger, more complex picture than that. And this motion, added to the climate emergency declaration, gives the full picture, and it recognises what the council has been doing for years and years, and will continue to do. So I really welcome this motion, and of course we'll be voting to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Rob Hannaford.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I mean, I'm up for election on Thursday, so I guess I ought to get this in now just in case I don't get re-elected back to the council again. But I want to tackle and deal with respect the things that we've done in the past. I mean, I've been a councillor on this council a long time, not as long as some people, but I have been here a long time. And I've always done, locally what we could with biodiversity. As my colleagues know, in Exeter, for example, and in St Thomas, over the years, certainly since austerity in 2010, I've spent thousands of pounds of county council money planting trees in Exeter City Council parks in partnership with the City Council's Parks Department. All of the community fruit trees that we've got in Cowett Barton playing fields that I help support, and that the late Councillor Paul Bull came along and helped plant with me many years ago. The work that Councillor Sutton and Councillor Pearson have done about the fruit trees along the canal side that we put in, and all the wonderful wildflowers around the city. Again, we've managed to give grants, and I think only last year I spent somewhere in the region of £1,000 of my county council money on 2 separate wildflower projects, one in Exeter and one in St Thomas. So, when I wander around St Thomas, I can see the trees that I helped facilitate in the St Thomas churchyard, Pince's Gardens and St Thomas Pleasure Grounds, and along the riverside. We always have spearheaded recently, as local members will know, we've had a big debate about encouraging more bats into Pince's Gardens, for example, in connection with the rebuilding of the gatehouse, which is due to happen shortly. So over and over again, we've been concerned with the wildlife, and if I can make it current, if I may, Lord Mayor, as Councillor Moore will know, we're currently engaged in our Save Our Squirrels in St Thomas Pleasure Grounds at the moment, because there's somebody that's been trying to disturb nests with babies in that we're actually fighting against and raising. So we do care about wildlife and biodiversity. We're very proud of it, I think, in the city, historically as a city council, and I'm very proud locally the work that I've done with ward colleagues and the wider community to do all that we've done in West Ex and specifically St Thomas, despite being a very busy urban area. So let's not forget all the good long progress that we've made, and let's build on it, and let's not forget it, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hannaford. Mark, can I ask if there are any other hands before I come back to Councillor David Harvey?
I've one more hand raised from Councillor Wright.
Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will be very brief. Just one point I want to make about the retrofit that we're doing on all of our council houses. This isn't just something that we are doing to our council houses and to our residents. I'm very proud of the fact that it's enabling 4,000 families to take part in this venture to try to get towards this net zero target for us as Exeter citizens. So that's something that we shouldn't forget. You've heard tonight about numerous things that we've been doing in the council. Portfolio holders there have got brilliant insight into each of their areas. But I would just like to briefly say, very cheekily, misquoting somebody, we aren't stealing dreams and childhood with empty words. We are doing stuff. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And now then, in the absence of any other speakers, we now move to Councillor David Harvey to summarise, and then we'll move to the vote.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to pour a dose of cold water on some of the appropriate glorification of what we've been doing. I sit on HATOC, Highways and Transport Orders Committee in Exeter, which is one of the highlights of my life because I'm actually a logistician by trade. But hey, there we go. And I hear the people who have complained bitterly about pop-up transport elements which provide for improved pedestrian and cycle facilities. So I went to talk with one of them and I stood by the piece of work that had been done. He told me that no cyclist used it. Well, yeah. I managed to stay there for 45 minutes and 25 cyclists went past. And as I ticked them off, 1, 2, you could see his demeanour changing as he began to realise that in fact he was incorrect. But this does not mean that there are not a considerable number of people in this city, in this country and across the world who are naysayers about the size of this problem, are not prepared to, as Councillor Sutton said at a Labour group meeting not so long ago, suck up the pain. Because there is pain for some people, they will have to change their lifestyles. In order for us to achieve what we need to achieve, some people, the majority of people, if not everybody, will have to change their lifestyle, and people have to start getting used to it. Now, we are doing all we can. We are not the Highways Authority, but clearly nobody has yet mentioned the fact that public transport is improving dramatically around our very ears. Right? So the Oakhampton rail line will shortly be reopened to passenger traffic, meaning that people from West Devon will no longer have to drive into Exeter to work. That is carrying on. That is happening here and now. I have also an email from the Managing Director, Mark Hopwood, of Great Western Railway, who tells me that it is extraordinarily likely that the train service to Pinhoe Station, which, as you all know, in the northeast of Exeter, has a considerable amount of development, and in East Devon on our very boundary, there's a considerable amount of development, that the train service in the December timetable, December 2021, will be doubled. Now, that is not yet, I don't think, common knowledge, but Mark Hopwood has written an email to me and not asked me to keep it quiet. So I'm sharing it with you. We, as a city council, have been part of those developments, albeit a tiny part, but people need to understand that we are doing what we can do. And I would like to finish with a quote. This is a quote about something that's very dear to my heart, as you all know. And that's planting trees. A society grows great when old people plant trees in whose shade they know they shall never sit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And that brings us to the conclusion of the debate, to the original motion. And I ask colleagues, those who wish to vote against the original motion, the one we just debated, can you please show your hands now?
No hands are raised, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any abstentions?
No abstentions, Lord Mayor. So the motion has been carried unanimously.
Thank you. We only have one agenda item left, but to do it justice, I will make a decision from the chair that we will take a 4-minute comfort break. In doing so, please be mindful that your screens may be on show to the members of the public. I'll see you back here, please, in 4 minutes. Thank you all. Thank you, members. And that brings us to item number 14 on the agenda, which relates to questions from members in accordance with Standing Order 8. I can confirm that 3 questions have been received from Councillor Diana Moore. Members, you will have been emailed a copy of these questions separately. Can I please remind all councillors that the questions and answers will be given without debate. Councillor Moore is entitled to ask a supplementary question on each, again, which should be put and answered without debate. Those questions, that supplementary question, can only be asked on part of the reply that I believe will be given. So, Councillor Moore, can I please ask you to ask your first question and we'll deal with each one in turn. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As the benefits of health and well-being of green space are well documented, including in council strategies, please can you confirm if any green space between the Exeter Ship Canal and the River Exe or Bonhay Meadows near Exe Bridges is under any consideration for development, including infrastructure, as part of the Livable Exeter programme?
Thank you, Councillor Moore. That question was to the leader, and I wonder, Councillor Bialik, whether you will be answering it now or in writing.
I'll
Councillor
answer it
Bialik.
now, Lord Mayor, and I can answer it by saying, indeed, the Livable Exeter vision has been presented to council and indeed to members' briefing, and all sites have been put before members, although no decisions on any of those sites were made, as it is clearly a vision document. And as we all know, a local plan is coming forward, and many of them will appear within the local plan, it is hoped. Exeter City Living, which is the development arm of the council, are examining and will continue to examine the suitability of land for development in accordance with that Livable Exeter document, including sites such as Bonhay Meadows. And you may recall from the Livable Exeter vision document images of buildings alongside the river. But it never pays to take these images literally. They are visioning documents. But the concept of fronting development onto the river instead of turning it back to the river is a key principle within the Livable Exeter vision. It offers opportunities for enhancing the waterside amenity and to allow residents to connect with the riverside environment. That said, there are existing planning policies that would need to be considered should any scheme come forward. And there are flood risk considerations. And whenever there is a building close to the river, there are also likely to be requirements for new transport infrastructure to improve linkages across the river for cyclists and pedestrians. Given that, we are in early days of addressing the practical delivery challenge of a shift in housing strategy and consequential infrastructure requirements to service 12,000 homes. I cannot be more precise, but to be specific in relation that no sites have come forward, nothing has been agreed. The project company will do its work. It will come back to council. It will come back to the planning committee, and a decision will be made, taking all the consultation processes in place at that time. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Councillor Moore, do you have a supplementary question in relation to the response you just heard from the leader?
Thank you. Yes, please. So thank you for clarifying that Bonhay Meadows is under consideration. You didn't respond to my point about any green space between the Exeter Ship Canal and the River Exe, whether that's being considered for development, including any infrastructure. Thank you.
Councillor Bialik.
Okay, well, thank you. The principle of what I just said equally applies to that, Councillor. As I said, when you say consideration, No decision has been made by anybody to say, yes, we are going to do that. So in effect, we may be looking over the cliff and we will take a look of what's down the bottom, but we don't necessarily need to jump. But what we must remember, that we need to build 12,000 homes, and the city centre and those areas are important for infrastructure connectivity and transport solutions as well. If we are to save green space on the periphery of the city, we have to look at these things at the very, very least. In simple terms, I have said we must be allowed to go up if people don't want us to go across and consume green open space. It is as simple as that. So we are not ruling anything out, nor should we. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Councillor Moore, please pose your second question now.
Thank you. We will soon reach the second anniversary of the Council's declaration of a climate emergency and biodiversity crisis, and that Exeter should reach net zero carbon by 2030. Will an annual carbon budget and the expected carbon reduction trajectory for the next 10 years and the progress towards net zero 2030 goal over the last year be published for both the City and the Council? Thank you.
Councillor Bialik, are you in a position to answer that now?
I am indeed, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor, first of all, I'm pleased we've established now the actual anniversary date of the climate change declaration here in Exeter. Clear and transparent ways in which we can report progress on carbon reduction targets have yet to be finalised, and the focus of the resources we have remains on making practical interventions which have real impact. Measuring the City Council's progress against a proposed trajectory should be relatively straightforward once the Carbon Action Plan is complete. This work is being completed by the Centre for Energy and Environment at Exeter University, with housing being the first service to contribute to the carbon plan. This will identify the opportunities available and a plan of action for each service. In addition to this, our annual carbon baseline is reported to scrutiny. Measuring the progress of the city is a hugely complex process, and with the resources we have, or rather not have, available, will only be possible at any level of significant detail. The city has great support from our major institutions via Exeter City Futures and the Place Board, who have ambitious carbon reduction plans and are keen to feed in their progress. Monitoring progress of smaller business and our residents is not realistically achievable, but we will look to best practice from other cities to help us, and may well as any new and emerging technologies to help us achieve this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Councillor Moore, do you have a supplementary question to the leader on anything that he has replied to you?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that reply. And I'd just like to invite a clarification, please. Which body is responsible for ensuring progress and undertaking scrutiny of that progress towards net zero for the city? And how do they intend to report on that?
Well, Lord Mayor, any progress on scrutiny comes back to our scrutiny. Look, I've tried to tell you and the members, we are doing our very, very best. We are trying to do all these things with limited resources. I want to do all these things. You want to do these things. We all do. Please give us the chance, judge us on the record that you listened to by all the other members of this council earlier. Please give us a chance. You know we want to do this, and I'm sorry we cannot give you to dot the I's and cross the T's in this very moving situation.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Councillor Diana Moore, would you like to pose your third and final question?
Thank you, Councillor Bialik, for your response. Last year, the council approved in principle to set up a market rent housing company to purchase property from Exeter City Living or on the private sector market and provide property for market rent to the public. Please can the portfolio holder confirm if the feasibility study on this market rent company has been concluded, resulting in the company being set up or other arrangements put in place to progress this, and what proportion of market rent to affordable housing underpins the business model assumptions? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Bialik, I understood from the pre-meeting we had that you would respond, but do you wish to delegate this to the portfolio holder, or will you answer it?
No, I am the portfolio holder for this, Lord Mayor, believe it or not. And the response I have got is short, but I can't do short. I'm telling you, we have every intention to bring about, we're having a feasibility study, and that case is still, the business case is still being considered. It is our aspiration to bring forward a residential property company. And that is to allow us to be able to bring forward, we've got our HRA, which deals with social and affordable housing, and we wish to bring forward a residential property company where we can start to disrupt the private rented market in Exeter. That is our ambition, to disrupt by offering decent market rent accommodation to people, to give security of tenure. And many of us who have had family and children evicted because people want to sell their homes, privately rented homes, we want to change all of that. And we will be bringing forward ambitious plans on this, hopefully, but you must give us time. And as for what proportion of market rent to affordable housing underpins this business case model, this has to be determined. But I hope my enthusiasm and my group's enthusiasm to do this for people and residents in Exeter will be more than enough to assure you that this is something we want to deliver. It's not as easy as that, but we have a determination. We will deliver it. I think we can deliver it. We're determined to bring the leisure services back in-house. That was very difficult. We've done that, and I believe we can do this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bialik. Councillor Diana Moore, do you have a supplementary question to the leader on anything that he's just said?
No, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, members, and that now brings us to the end of this evening's proceedings, and I formally close the meeting. Good night, one and all.